A decade ago, a naive 19-year-old from Bondi travelled to Cambodia. Prosperity to poverty was certainly eye-opening for Tara Winkler, especially when she started to visit little children in the country's many, many orphanages. She fell in love with them. It's impossible not to. And she vowed to rescue as many kids as she could. Tara started up her own charity and home and raised her profile back in Australia to raise money for the orphans of Cambodia. Then she discovered she'd been completely fooled. Turns out most of her orphans had parents and families. What Tara did next is as impressive as it is inspiring. Cambodia's biggest tourist attraction, the temples of Angkor Wat, are truly spectacular. But driving past today, no one is taking any notice of the magnificent 900-year-old architecture. We're in convoy with government officials on our way to shut down an orphanage that is grossly neglecting the children. They have no toilets, no beds, no access to healthcare. They even have to find their own food. It's a secretly planned raid. And what greets us is so shocking. It's almost unbelievable.
I can't say it's worst. It's in worst condition.
Is this the worst orphanage that you've seen?
Absolutely.
What's most heartbreaking is that these kids shouldn't be in an orphanage because they're not orphans. Every single child in this orphanage has a family. It's hard to imagine that whatever they left behind was worse than this. Unfortunately, what we encounter here is the perfect example of Cambodia's orphanage crisis. A mixture of poverty, corruption and desperation, forcing parents to send their kids to the homes because they think they'll get a better life. What makes it worse is well-meaning Western tourists are being duped by the scam.
I was travelling through Southeast Asia, got to Cambodia, felt uncomfortable being on holiday, surrounded by so much poverty, and wanted to do something to give back. So I went, visited a few orphanages and was heartbroken by what I saw.
And that's what's driven every decision that you've made since?
Yeah, I mean, when you see kids living in that sort of condition, it's difficult to ignore.
11 years ago, then Bondi teenager Tara Winkler was haunted by the institutions she saw here. She naively vowed to save the children.
I had never encountered poverty quite like that. They didn't have enough food, there was no clean water, there were kids there with HIV, and I don't think I'd ever met someone with HIV before. So that was really confronting.
Tara thought she was doing the right thing. She raised money to set up her own orphanage, the Cambodian Children's Trust, and daringly rescued 14 of the most neglected children. How were the kids when they got on that bus?
And I think it was a sort of sense of deliverance that they was free from that place.
And if suddenly becoming a mother figure to 14 children wasn't enough to comprehend, as Tara became fluent in Khmer, the children started revealing startling facts about themselves.
Started telling me about their families and that most of them had parents.
So if they weren't orphans, what were they doing in an orphanage?
It's a very good question, yeah. I had thought that the kids that we had rescued out of the orphanage were orphans. And to find out as well that they missed their families and worried about their families. And we had some issues where kids were stealing money to send home to their families.
Tara had suddenly exposed Cambodia's dirtiest secret. In the last decade, orphanage numbers have doubled, even though there's barely a need for them. We might call them orphanages, but 80% of the children in them aren't orphans. They have families. The problem is, parents see it as a way out of poverty. They think they're giving their child a better chance. But for many operators, it's not about the kids, it's about the money. Orphanage tourism is a booming business, and every time we visit as a tourist, donate or volunteer, we're not helping but fueling the exploitation of these vulnerable kids.
It was devastating for me as well to learn that I had inadvertently become a part of the problem. I had been an orphanage tourist, a volunteerist. I then set up my own orphanage and facilitated orphanage tourism to generate funds for the orphanage before I knew better.
Do you think that's how they're treated here, as tourist attractions?
Yes. You don't go and visit vulnerable children when you're on holiday in America or the UK. So I think we have to question why we feel it's appropriate to do in a country like Cambodia.
Siem Reap is a tourist hotspot. The temples of Angkor Wat are just a few minutes' drive from the city centre. And where there's tourists, there's orphanages. They're easy to find, and as we found when posing as well-meaning tourists, even easier to visit. What's your name?
Sakan.
Sakan, nice to meet you, Sakan. The children are uncomfortably affectionate as they compete for our attention. To my alarm, they take me by the hand to where the girls sleep. 12 girls in here.
12.
Completely unsupervised. This is 5 children that I've had holding my hand or sitting on my lap, and I haven't seen an adult yet to tell me that I'm not even allowed to be here. I could be anyone, absolutely anyone. What's this?
Allison.
Ah.
You have to think, if you have had access to those children, then so does a predator or so does a pedophile.
Thank you. Bye, kids. No one asked us our name, no one asked to see any identification. The kids were crawling all over us. I feel sick. I feel sick. I mean, anyone could have walked in that door. Anyone.
It's rife throughout Cambodia. Like every week, I think, we hear about a case of some abuse happening in an orphanage.
At another home, young boys grab a stranger's hand, oblivious to the potential danger. It's the middle of the day and over 40 degrees, but the kids are brought out to dance for us. Later in the visit, the director asks for donations. It's a familiar scene for orphan Sanet Chan.
When I was young, I thought that when tourists come to the orphanage, I think it's good because every time they come, they give you love, they give you attention. Sometimes they brought you some present.
That's the only love you ever experienced.
Yeah. And they always promise us that they will come back, but they never come back. And every time they leave, we are crying. We feel very, very sad. We feel abandoned.
Sanet is one of the orphans Tara Winkler saved. But as they got to know each other, it was Sanet who helped Tara understand the real problem here. 5 years ago, Tara made the gut-wrenching decision to close her orphanage and instead concentrate on reuniting the children with their parents. You came over here with the best of intentions, but did something you now see as a mistake.
Yeah, it's just the way that we've done it for such a long time and nobody questions it. In 2011, I was awarded New South Wales Young Australian of the Year for setting up an orphanage. And for a really long time, that's been just unquestionably a good thing. But ultimately, the best place for those kids is with their family. This is one of the families that we're supporting at the moment. Pia, the eldest son, has been in our programs for a while.
So he was in an orphanage?
He was in an orphanage and then...
This young man, Pia, is now 17. But when he was 9, his poverty-stricken parents sent him to an orphanage. Last year, Tara found Pia's parents and helped reunite them.
So Pia would then come and spend just weekends until he felt comfortable. So it's always the decision of the child to go back.
So you don't just find the family and drop them off, it's quite a long process.
No, once a family has been broken apart, it's a very careful process to put them back together again.
This is what Tara now runs, a series of community youth centres where kids like Pia come 6 days a week. It's 4 times cheaper to run than an orphanage, so so many more kids can attend. And their parents are also supported. Best of all, the families all go home together at night. How many kids do you help here?
There's about 150 kids that come to this particular centre every day to have breakfast. They access nutritious meals, clean water, healthcare, supplementary education, support to attend public school, counselling.
Why do you think the kids do come every day?
Tara's work is so revolutionary, it's now being recognised by UNICEF.
Because of the nutrition program and health and hygiene and the support from our nurses, our medical costs have actually reduced by 40% over the last few years.
Impressive.
Because they're not so sick anymore. So
Bruce Grant is the organisation's Chief of Child Protection in Cambodia.
You've seen a lot in your time. What are some of the horror stories that you've heard?
10, 15, 20 children sleeping on the floor, boys and girls sleeping together, sexual predators accessing those kids, and those kids being taken outside to dance for tourists to bring money in, and that money goes to the operators, not to the kids.
kids are learning literacy skills, English literacy.
Bruce, you've had a look around here. You've seen the work that Tara does. What do you think?
I think it's really impressive. What we're going to see happen is centres like this become the norm.
The Cambodian government also supports what Tara's doing. And with 50,000 kids still living in orphanages across the country, it's made a drastic decision to shut down a third of them. And this is their plan in action. Sokha Ross, the government's Director of Child Welfare, is the man in charge of the program. He's here today for the first time to investigate this orphanage, a place barely fit for human living.
Sokha, what do you think when you look around and see the conditions these children are living in?
I really feel upset when I see things that happen here.
They're living like animals, aren't they?
Yeah, I can say. I feel angry, and we should not allow this type of centers exist anymore.
This is where they sleep. The room is stifling hot. Boys and girls sleep in these beds together, sometimes with adults.
Thankfully, the government will reunite these children with their families over the next few weeks. Meanwhile, Tara has written a book about her mistakes, which she hopes will make good-hearted tourists re-evaluate the way they donate, volunteer and visit orphanages.
So you're a woman on a mission.
Yeah, and for better or worse, now I have a platform, and if my voice and my story can help achieve that, then so be it.
Tara Winkler's message is simple. Only help organisations that reunite families, not break them apart.
I have made all those mistakes myself, and so I know what it's like to be uninformed and then to make the wrong decisions, and then to have to eat a big piece of humble pie to admit that I'd made a mistake and inadvertently become part of the problem. So maybe that is what drives me, is the need to be a part of the solution.